Hi, I am going to do a quick demo on how to make a 3-strand bracelet with the stringing and the crimping. Um, my standard length of these bracelets is 12 tiles long with 2 seed beads on each end and 1 seed bead between every tile. I also often make them 13 tiles long with the same 2 seed beads on either end. So 12 and 13 tiles long are my standard 2 sizes, and I will go do any length that people want, but that's the most common. Now I'm going to make a 3-strand bracelet like this in a teal swirl color. I have it started. I have 1 strand done with the clasp, and I'm going to walk through making the 2nd strand. Take a piece of soft flex, cut it so that it is about 1.5 inches longer than the finished bracelet on either end. So take your sample bracelet and give yourself about 1.5 inches of extra soft flex on either end. Then take the first end of the soft flex, put your crimp on it, put it through the ring on the clasp, just as you would any loop in the crimp. Put the soft flex back through so that you're closing the loop, and then give yourself about 3 or 4 millimeters long of a loop. So you want a large enough loop so that each strand of the bracelet will flow, but not so tight, and not so tight that it sticks out of the clasp in a funny way, but you also don't want any more than 4 millimeters long of a loop, because that just adds extra length to the bracelet. That's not pretty. I'm going to take my crimping pliers, which have 2 places to crimp in on them. The bottom one, closest to my hand, is the first one you close the crimps with. It puts a slit along the middle of the bead. I do that first. So I put the crimp in the hole of the crimping pliers that is closest to my hand. I squeeze as hard as I can, and I know it's hard to see on this picture, but that puts a divot in the crimp. I always move it in and out to see if it'll focus, but it doesn't really focus. Then I use the second hole, the hole in the pliers that's closer to this end, further from my hand, turn the crimp on its side, and squeeze in the other hole, and this closes it. So the first squeeze puts a little divot, a little crack, a little crease along the crimp, and the second squeeze folds it in half, and then I take the very tip of the pliers, the part where there's no hole at all, and I line it up very evenly with the crimp and give it a light squeeze just to sort of finish it off. Then there's a loose tail that needs clipping. I take my cutters, only use them if they're sharp. If you don't have sharp cutters, wait till you do, because this will get to be a stubby mess of an end. Get as close as you can to the pliers and just cut them, or to the crimp and cut them. That way you want to avoid having a pokey, prickly end there that will bump into your arm as you're wearing it. So it's really important to cut that closely. And then let me get my seed beads. All you need to do is string up the strand, which I like to, in my hand, put all the seed beads on one side, put 12 tiles on the other side of my hand, and I'm going to start, as I said, with 2 seed beads on the end. 2 seed beads, 1 tile, 1 seed bead, 1 tile, 1 seed bead, 1 tile, 1 seed bead, 1 tile. Do this till you have all 12 tiles strung up. And this sounds obvious, but when you're doing these 3-strand bracelets, make sure all your strands are the same length. Of course you want to make sure all 3 strands have 12 tiles if you're doing a standard bracelet, or 13 tiles if you're doing the slightly longer bracelet. And then beyond that, you also need to make sure that all the loops are consistent. All 3 soft flex loops on one side should be very close in same size to each other, and all 3 soft flex loops on the other side should match each other and the first side. Otherwise the lengths of the strands end up different and the bracelet doesn't fit well. So here we go. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Last one. 12, and then 2 seed beads. And then for this particular style, I recommend that when you crimp the second end of each strand, you close this clasp, because it's very easy to mix up and attach it to the wrong end on the other side. So I recommend closing this. You got your 2 seed beads at the end. Grab your crimp, slide it on there. Make the loop with your soft flex along the silver ring on the other side of the clasp. Put it back through the crimp. Pull it tight. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of slack or loose soft flex without any beads. And at the same time, you want to make sure the loop is the same size that you made on the other end. Not too big, not too small. It's kind of a lot to think about in the moment that you're crimping. But you hold it all together, and then you do the first squeeze with the pliers, change direction of the crimp, and you change the chamber in the pliers. You give it another, oops, drop my pliers. Another squeeze with the other side of the pliers. And then to finish it off, a light tap with the very end of the pliers. Then you take your cutters, cut the last end of the soft flex, and I'm not going to do the 3rd strand of this bracelet now, but you want to hold them up, stretch them out like this, and make sure that both ends look about the same. And this one you can see, I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see that when I pull them, one strand pulls really tight and the other is hanging a little. That means that one is a little bit longer than the other. And the goal is to have them all the same length. Like this one, which I already made and is finished, you pull both ends and they all are literally right next to each other. So that's the goal. Then you just finish it with the last strand of soft flex, 12 more beads, crimps, and you're all set. In the end, if these look like they are inconsistent lengths, you might need to redo one of the strands and make it so that it's as consistent with the loops and the lengths as possible. Thank you.